Shall we begin?
Football Feast.
Oh, well.
Hashtag Faith Radio.
You're listening to 9 to Noon.
9 to noon.
Big boy's back. Just listen. Just listen.
Good stuff. What in the ham fat is going on with you guys?
Yeah, but...
The Friday Football Feast from the Doubletree Hotel in St. Louis Park, just west of Minneapolis. We're adjacent to 394. It's PA and Charch feasting at the Minnesota High School Football Association Coaches Clinics. Now, I'm Paul Allen. Paul Charchian's the co-host. Jared Wells, quite the accomplished high school football player back in his day. In fact, what high school you go to? At Fridley High School. Jared Wells, at one point, had a season where he ran for 1,300 yards and 17 touchdowns. He had an opportunity to advance to a Division I school, turn down scholarship opportunities to become a technical engineer, a sound engineer for Little River Band. And it's a decision he does not regret. But here he is with us at KFAN.
Two-way player, by the way. A lot of people don't know that.
What's that mean?
Two-way player.
Yeah,
well, I'm referring to his football career, nothing else. Mm-hmm. He not only did he rush for the 1,300 yards that you mentioned, the double-digit touchdowns, still holds the Fridley High School record for broken tackles, but he was also the starting safety with 28 career interceptions.
Are you kidding me?
Yes, 17 of them returned for touchdown.
No wonder
Jared Wells.
No wonder Notre Dame and Alabama and Clemson and LSU were all over the two-way player who not only broke tackles, he broke hearts when he was in high school. Charch came with an agenda, by the way. You high school football coaches here for the clinics. The agenda from the co-host, Paul Charchian. The only way he and his partners at GuillotineLeagues.com will jumpstart Minnesota high school fantasy football is if coaches commit more to the forward pass. And I started to put together like the origin of the forward pass, and but then I'm like, that might be just a little too much, you know. But how well, by the way, is that quest advancing when it comes to Minnesota high school fantasy football and the advancing of the forward pass? And good morning.
It's funny. People are playing high school fantasy. That's a real thing.
Really?
And it's because the stat availability is better than it ever used to be.
Oh.
And so now you can get the stats.
Yeah.
There are people that play that way. Mm-hmm. We're not supporting it quite yet at GuillotineLeagues.com, but you never say never. I don't know. I mean, if you want to do it well, you got to start tracking these kids in elementary school.
No doubt.
So, you got to find that rising fourth grader who really looks promising.
Elementary NIL involves better spots at the playground. You don't have to sit in the front row in math, and if you're
back of the bus.
Well, if you're not that good, you get candy corn. If you're really good, you get like Milky Ways and
Snickers
and Snickers bars. and stuff
Reese's
like that.
peanut butter cup. Yeah,
It's just all over the place. So at here's some of the goodies, some of the goods we are offering at no charge with today's football feast, the 9 to noon Friday football feast with PA and Charch, free of charge each and every Friday. Thanks for listening to FM 100.3 KFAN or via the free iHeartRadio app. The goodies include at 9:35 Gophers defensive line and assistant head coach Winston DeLattiboudere. What's wrong?
That is a mouthful.
Well,
and I think you hit it right. I wrote it down.
I texted you the proper pronunciation in your Tolstoy that you sent out to yours truly with some tidbits and nuggets and suggestions for topics during the course of the show. You didn't put it in there the way I sent it to you.
I know, because here's why.
Yeah?
I actually found audio of him saying his own name.
So did I.
And then I wrote down how I heard him say it.
Well, you might want to check an ear, nose, and throat doctor because that 2019 clip that we both probably watched when he was a defensive lineman for the Golden Gophers, DeLattiboudere. We'll find out. He'll apprise us of it and inform us of it at about 9:35. He's here to teach and preach defensive line. Winston DeLattiboudere at about 9:35. Chad Greenway returns to the Friday Football Feast. Haven't seen him in a month and change. He will be on site around 9:45 for 5-2 radio. Football for sure with Greenway, but nevertheless, the game changer, Chad, he's quite excited for Clark v. Beckers tonight in the women's Final Four. Bertie.
It's the biggest game in the history of women's college football,
Yep.
and it's happening tonight at 8:30 p.m. This is the last game was previously the biggest game in the history of college women's basketball. This one, now that we're in the Final Four, has got to be bigger. I don't know if the viewership's going to be bigger because it's a Friday night, right?
12 million.
People, you got to get to 12.5 if you're going to beat the last game.
Yep.
The problem is it's a Friday night, Paul. People do things on Friday nights, right? They go out with friends. They go to concerts. They go to bars. They do other things. So I don't know if you're going to have the same viewership numbers, better numbers, maybe worse because it's a Friday night.
Yeah.
But it's a bigger game. No matter what the viewership is, this is a bigger, more important game because it's the Final Four, and it opens up the prospect of Caitlin Clark taking down the LSU revenge game with Angel Reese, taking down Paige Beckers,
well, you're into this
and
thing.
then taking down what will be an undefeated South Carolina team.
Right.
I mean, it would be one of the most epic runs in the history of college playoffs, regardless of sport.
Why you got to disrespect
And that's
the
not a
Wolfpack?
preposterous statement.
Why you got to disrespect the Pack? I mean, you got
Pack ain't winning.
Well, you got NC State with men and women's teams in the Final Four.
Right.
Both underdogs. You're just up here disrespecting everything that is Derek or Darika Thurl or Teresa Bailey or Derek or Darika Wittenberg and the history of NC State basketball. Who are you?
Well, here's what I do know. South Carolina's undefeated.
Yeah.
North Carolina's already considered a Cinderella to even get here. I assume they're just going to get curb stomped
We'll see.
by the Gamecocks tonight.
High school coaching immortality. Ron Stolsky joins us at the Doubletree around 11 a.m. Ron Stolsky, you say. How about this? The man coached high school football for nearly 60 years and almost half a century at Brainerd High School.
Wow.
High school football in the 60s and high school football during up to the pandemic. I mean, I'm guessing Coach Stolsky has some wonderful stories to share, and he's followed by elite film watching analyst Greg Cosell around 11:20. Now, Greg is a senior analyst and producer for NFL Films, and we happen to be quite excited to hear what he shares about the quarterbacks to be drafted in a few weeks.
Yeah, I want to battle him on Michael Penix. Potentially battle him. Is
he negatory?
I'm starting to firm up a very negative opinion on Michael Penix,
really?
and I want to hear if he's got the same one.
Yeah, okay. But you know what? In 20 days, it's something with which you probably will not have to deal. After Kwesi and the Minnesota Vikings move way, way, way up in the first round to take a quarterback not named Penix.
It's not going to happen.
That's strictly conjecture on the part of yours truly. So Ron Stolsky and Greg Cosell in the final hour. Vikes Bites are around the corner, but first, I brought this up yesterday with a draft-related guest with whom I started the radio show, a man named John Harris, somebody I met a couple of years ago at the NFL Scouting Combine. He's the Lieber for the Texans radio network. He's sideline reporter and analyst. He also has a draft website and does like a big draft guide. He's the cat who last year offered up 3 draft opinions to me when I was on his show, and he went bam, 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 including you can have Levis, you can have Young, you can have everybody else. C.J. Stroud is the right one for any team, and here's why.
Wow.
And
that was a good call. I mean, not totally out of the blue. I mean, did go second overall. But
right.
Yes.
But, I mean, you got a 3-horse race, and it's not like he's 1-9. And being horse racing raised, racetrack raised, anytime anybody offers up a take like that, an opinion like that, and just nails it, I'm not ready to bet in the blind on said takes. But he was wonderful offering some opinions yesterday about his Texans, who now have Stephon Diggs, and they're playing fast right now. The Diggs deal, all right. So they trade for a high end receiver, then convinced Diggs to wipe away the final 3 years of his deal, gave him $3.5 million guaranteed, and now he gets $24 million guaranteed for this year.
Yeah.
And he gets to become a free agent in the offseason. What does the co-host think about all that?
Well, a lot of things. Number one, Diggs has now wind his way to all these better contracts, right? And, so he got himself out of Minnesota, got a big deal with Buffalo, got himself out of Buffalo, now sets him up for a bigger payday this year, way more guaranteed money, and the chance to go to free agency next year.
Yeah.
Also says Texans are in it to win, and this year the rebuild lasted, Paul, one season.
Right.
Houston won the division.
Right.
Went to the playoffs, won a game in the playoffs, and now Houston is like, you know what? We don't think we're that far off the Chiefs. We're going to go make a move for it.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to that. A month ago, as you may recall, when I was doing I was heading into my camping trip.
Yeah.
I picked up Houston to win the Super Bowl, 22-1. They're 16-1 now.
Oh, geez.
After the Diggs trade.
Yeah.
This is I'm telling Houston is as viable a competitor for the Chiefs as anybody else.
Okay.
Last thing I want to make on this.
Yeah.
Why give up a second round pick for a player that will be on your team for 1 year?
Well, there's no guarantee of that. I mean, there is a form of prove it to this. It's a $24 million prove it. Prove it.
Yeah.
And if we're good and we get close or we win or whatever, we'd love to have you back, but we're also going to permit you the opportunity to open your options. So it could be more than maybe Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, general manager of the Minnesota Vikings, is looking at it this way, the Birchie. The Vikings are reported to have nearly $100 million to spend next offseason. So maybe next offseason, this time next year, they'll franchise Justin Jefferson and sign Stephon Diggs. I mean, how much would KOC and the new quarterback love play action off Aaron Jones and firing to options that include Jefferson, Diggs, Addison, and Hawkinson? Pick your poison with all that, beloved adversaries, and the fantasy football-loving co-host is all wide-eyed.
Oh, wouldn't it be an amazing story if Stephon Diggs came back?
Yeah, but see, NIL would then be name, image, and loathing.
Yeah, I think the Viking fan base is not ready to have him back. And honestly, where he is now in Houston, Diggs is the third best receiver on his team.
Oh, come on.
With Jordan Addison and Justin, he is.
Good Lord. Okay.
Nico Collins and Tank Dell are extremely good.
Sure.
And given what Diggs has has done the last couple of years, he's on the wrong side of his career, Paul.
What? You mean lead the NFL in receptions?
No, he did not lead the NFL in receptions.
Or have 100 receptions every year of his. Anyway, that's not even worth arguing. We welcome you to the Minnesota Football Coaches Association clinics at the DoubleTree Hotel in St. Louis Park. We are adjacent to Minneapolis, and when we return, Vikes Bites, and the return of producer Eric Nordquist guides us through this Friday football feast. It's PA in Charch. Jared Wells technically guiding us in second and on fashion from the lobby at the DoubleTree. Jason to KFAN and Minneapolis. Thank you very much for joining, and enjoy the radio show. Back after this.
Football Feast.
Wow, wasn't that fun?
Fan.
From the Minnesota Football Coaches Association clinics coming up around the corner. It's the DoubleTree adjacent to Minneapolis, right off 394. It's PA in Charch, but Nordo has Vikes Bites.
Vikes Bites.
And that's always presented by Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Grass-Fed Beef. Learn more about regenerative agriculture and shop online. Just go to thousandhills.com and a box of meat shows up at your doorstep. By the way, gentlemen, later on in the show, we're going to be playing draft-related talkbacks. And as part of that, I believe you guys have been doing it all week. This is my first day back. But the idea of the Miller Lite Vikings draft party and what kind of festivity, what kind of insane party that's going to be on draft night, anticipating maybe the Vikings got some moves up their sleeves. I got a couple of passes to give away. You can learn more about the Miller Lite Vikings draft party at KFAN.com. Just use the keyword contest, but send NFL Vikings draft-related talkbacks. I play those back at some point later in the show, and somebody's going to win a pair of passes. That's brought to you by Pep's Draft House Pizza. Speaking of the Diggs trade, and you guys hit on it, the twist occurring yesterday, the idea that they wipe out the final 3 years of his deal, and he has the opportunity to be a free agent. What's interesting about that, if you kind of go the 6 degrees of separation, getting back to the purple here, is Adam Schefter reported that Houston was actually the team that initiated that draft pick trade with the Vikings. And here's what he says. The Houston Texans went to the Minnesota Vikings and initiated a trade in which they got out of the first round, got an extra second-round pick, and they got an extra second-round pick in 2025. So lo and behold, everyone assumes that the Vikings initiated it so they could go up and get a QB. But in the end, it was the Texans. So the Texans playing 4D chess here in terms of getting extra equity to maybe make a move like Stephon Diggs. The Vikings lauded for creating flexibility, but in the end, it was the Texans who got this process going. Does it matter that the Vikings weren't originators? Should we just be happy that they benefit from it? What do you guys think about the situation in which it was the Texans who approached Kwesi with the idea of getting them into the first round?
It is a fascinating nugget because we had all assumed that the Vikings had initiated that move because they wanted more equity to move up. Turns out Houston did, and Kwesi went along with it, which doesn't necessarily change the idea of whether or not it was a good or bad trade for each team at all. But it does make you wonder a little bit, Nordo, was there, if the Vikings didn't initiate it, did the Vikings... It does change the narrative. Did the Vikings need that extra first rounder to move up? Because we had assumed that they were collecting equity to move up. And I think this really solidifies the notion that maybe the odds of the Vikings moving up aren't as great as everybody seems to think they are, which for some of us has been one of the things we've been saying for quite a while. But I think that runs contrary to the generally accepted narrative.
So, and with that said, Charch, steam and some conversation over the course of this last week following it, playing the what-if scenario, the Vikings not being able to trade up. Now, 9 to noon, PA and I have talked about this multiple times, the massive capital advantage. So whether they were the originators or not, the Vikings get this second first-round pick. They have a massive capital advantage of anybody that wants to get to that 3 spot, that 4 spot, at least in current equity, given the fact that they have that second first-round pick. Now, it's been reported that there was a big Vikings entourage in person for a private workout with Michael Penix. Sounds like Charch absolutely loathes the idea of getting Michael Penix on this team. Excited to hear his chat with Greg Cosell later in the show. But Charch, I guess my question was, do you feel that steam? But it sounds like you do, and you're at least mentally protecting yourself for the idea that while we're waiting for the ticker at the bottom of NFL Network on draft night to change and suddenly the Vikings helmet pops up in the first 5 picks, you're leaning towards the idea of that not being a reality as we get closer to the draft.
I am. The cost to move up is prohibitive. I don't think the top 3 teams are likely to want to move because they need quarterbacks. And, the draft does not exist to make it all work out perfectly for the Vikings. I mean, I just think Viking fans have this delusion that it's just going to fall into place for Minnesota. And I don't think other teams are really that interested in putting the Vikings into a great position necessarily. And I don't know that the Vikings are going to decide they even want to pay what it will pay to move up to 5 or 6 if they want to get the 4th quarterback off the board, or 7 or 4 if you have to get 4 is absolutely
3 first-round picks will get you 4.
It probably would get you 4. Is that a good move? That's at that point it's you're basically all in and you have to get that move right.
Right.
Which it might be the right thing to do. We don't know yet. Increasingly, as I'm talking to people that are very smart on the draft, it doesn't sound like the quarterback you would get at 4 is requisite of 3 first-round picks. And so it could very well be that Kwesi just decides, you know what? We're gonna solidify this defense. We need a D end desperately. We need cornerbacks desperately. That's 11 and that's 23, and that solves massive holes in this team. And then you look to the draft next year for your quarterback solution. You look to free agency and hope you find somebody there.
Yep. Well, let me hit you with this. Vikes Bites, presented by Thousand Hills. Rick Spielman chimes in. Here's a quote from him. They're going to have to give, as you mentioned, the picks 11 and 23 and their 2025 first. So that's where you get to the 3 firsts, plus some more draft capital. And this in relation to J.J. McCarthy. Spielman says, I think he'll be a good pro, but Minnesota will overpay to get him. But then he also notes, at this point, they don't have a choice. So it's kind of the idea of where you're arguing, or not arguing, but you're stating the fact that, man, 3 first-round picks, the steam engine on JJ's been insane since the national title game, all of that. So would it be in a less steamy or less situational year where so many teams at the top of the draft need QBs? Maybe you get a JJ at 11, maybe you get him at 23, that this time you have to spend and you have to move up there. But to Spielman's point, for the sake of this franchise moving forward, you make the decision on Kirk that you effectively make financially, that you actually have to. So in this vein, it's, you're going to overpay, but you kind of made your bed, now you got to lay in it. What do you think about that?
At some point, you have to break the cycle. If you're going to keep drafting in the middle of the first round, at some point, you have to break the cycle and go get your quarterback, right? When you don't have a quarterback, your whole draft turns into, what are we doing at quarterback? And at some point, you have to break the cycle. Kwesi might decide this is the year to do that, and this is the year. We've got the 2 first-rounders. This is the year we're going to go make that move. And it's a totally plausible approach. It's a grotesque overpay, but it always is when teams do this. The 49ers made their huge move to go get Trey Lance. You remember that? And they only moved like a handful of spots. Cost them a ton. So, you can't keep going into every season doing what the Vikings did for the better part of 15 years between Culpepper and Kirk, where you're just recycling old players nobody else wants or reaching for guys in the draft that aren't elite prospects. And Kwesi may decide that he's going to break the cycle here. I lean that he won't do it this year, but it's still possible.
Our cavalcade of guests from the Doubletree in St. Louis Park for the Minnesota High School Football Coaches Association Clinics begins around the corner. It is Golden Gophers defensive line coach and assistant head coach Winston Scott DeLattiboudere. He'll be joining us on FM 100.3 KFAN and the Friday Football Feast. Don't leave. Welcome back to the clinic, and here is Golden Gophers defensive line coach and assistant head coach Winston Scott DeLattiboudere. Welcome, and did I even get close to the pronunciation of your name?
You knocked it out of the park.
Did not.
You did. Normally, right, people stutter and they stumble and all those different things. You killed it, and you just ran right through. I loved it.
Now, is it sounds French. Is it French?
So it is French.
It's a beautiful name.
French from Jamaican descent.
Wow.
So then you start talking about the British, how they colonized Jamaica, and then the French kind of sprinkled in there. But yes, French. Everybody always is like, oh, are you from New Orleans? Are you from New Orleans? No, I'm not from New Orleans.
Which would make sense, right?
Yeah, that
could easily be a Creole name.
Right, no doubt. No doubt.
Wait. I was under the impression that the Dutch held Jamaica for a long time. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
Okay.
So I have family like in Europe, sprinkled all over the place.
Yeah.
And I have yet to get over there, but as of recent, I found out I have a cousin who plays like professional soccer.
No way.
Oh, wow.
So it's all over the place, but I've got to continue to do my history, obviously.
Well, that's not with the cousin. I mean, have you met the cousin?
I have not met the cousin.
Well, it's not bad to have that type of a cousin in case you ever need some cash.
No doubt. No doubt. Or want to see a game for free. That's the next thing. Go see a soccer game.
Yeah, that's probably the preferred choice.
You didn't say what league he's playing in. You didn't say the Premier League.
Oh, yes, he did. He said for Aston Villa. Just kidding.
Right.
Look, exactly. Yeah, the highest and the best team all over.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Yeah, there was Beckham,
doubt.
then there was my cousin.
And that's what I'm going to tell my kids. I'm going to be like, you guys don't even know.
Right.
You guys have a cousin who's just almost as good as David Beckham. Then they're going to be like, who's David Beckham?
Right. Well, with the beautiful last name, and DeLattiboudere, it's Thursday night. Some people go hang out with their friends. Some people have a quality family time. My wonderful Thursday night was laying in bed going, DeLattiboudere, 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 to make sure I got it right and I didn't disrespect your name.
I think it's a little bit weird that you were laying in bed saying his name over and over again.
Oh, that's what I was when I was looking at the biography of the time with the Golden Gophers and the coaching fellowships with Green Bay and Jacksonville and the time in Charlotte and the time in Oregon and it's great having you here. And by the way, congratulations, because this is recent on the elevation and or the promotion to assistant head coach that took place just a couple of months ago, correct?
Yes, it did. I'm so humbled and I'm appreciative. And Coach Fleck, he called me into the office and he was like, "Look at you." He was like, "I remember when you were, 20 years old.
Yeah.
You were just running sprints and gassers. Now you're the assistant head coach at the University of Minnesota."
Yeah.
He was like, "Look at you. You keep on going." I'm like, "Thanks."
Right.
It was an awesome moment for both of us.
You did you grow up in Baltimore or the Baltimore area?
So Baltimore area, right? But I did a lot of sports in inner city Baltimore.
Okay.
And then in Anne Arundel County,
Yes.
like the Severn area.
Yes.
So
I'm
I
from
played.
Prince George's County.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So not too far away from that area.
Right.
But my mom and dad would have me do a lot of basketball, inner city Baltimore, and then I do a lot of football in other areas. I played baseball for one day, didn't work out, didn't have the attention. So after
You
that,
needed to hit somebody.
yeah, I needed to hit somebody.
Need some contact.
The ball was too small.
Yeah, I was like, what's going on here? I didn't even get a chance to hit, so it wasn't fun.
Well, the reason I bring it up, Baltimore's a tough guy town. I mean, there are a lot of cities that are branded as tough guy towns, and whether it's the TV show The Wire, where people start learning a little bit more about Baltimore, but being from somebody who grew up in Prince George's County, spent a lot of time in Baltimore, Camp Springs, Bowie, Forestville, Silver Spring, Anacostia, the whole thing is when I say tough guy town, I don't necessarily mean of the lascivious or gangster variety. It's just a tough town, and the weather, the seasons change and everything. And what'd you think about growing up in Baltimore?
Man, it was awesome. And like you said, tough guy town is legit. It's a lot of blue collar people, right? Just working. So being able to kind of see that and the derive of just the work ethic and what you kind of get out there from a seafood perspective, good food, all that stuff.
Oh yeah, the crab cakes, right? Legendary.
Yes, legendary.
Wow.
You don't know what you're gonna get with the seasons either. It's very bipolar. It's all over the place.
Okay, now when I meet somebody from the Baltimore or DC area, I don't think this place is a thing anymore. But like when I was playing sports there, when after a game we would go to Shakey's. All right, are there still Shakey's Pizza?
I don't know what
They were never Shakey's in Baltimore,
yeah,
were
Okay,
there?
I don't know.
no, and all throughout Maryland. Okay,
Really?
What about Chesapeake Bay Seafood House?
Okay, yeah, I've heard of Chesapeake Bay Seafood.
See, and that was an all-you-can-eat thing where they started you at frog legs, and you go up to the crab legs.
Yeah, you're missing me with the frog legs. I never had that. That will go back to the New Orleans thing.
And by the way, it's a seafood place.
Yeah.
Frog legs. What are they doing it when it's a tadpole? I mean, it's not seafood.
Yeah.
It's a frog.
Yeah, it's water food, but
I guess.
yeah, no,
I don't think that would
understand.
count as seafood.
Right,
I think that's super weird.
That's a good debate to have with the guys. I think I'm going to bring
understand.
that back to the position.
Or on the Food Channel. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, maybe so. So you're in Baltimore. You came here to Minnesota as a freshman, right?
Yep, as a freshman.
Okay, and so how old are you at that point?
So I was 17 years old. Had just turned 17.
How did you just turn 17 to be a freshman? You graduated early?
My mom started me in school early because I wouldn't shut up.
That's a pretty good reason.
Yeah,
actually.
there you go.
Get,
She was
get
like,
you out of the house.
She got me out of the house. She was like,
Yeah.
he can read, he can write, he won't shut up. Take him.
All right, I like that. All right, so you come here at 17. What was your impression of Minnesota and I assume you'd never been to Minnesota before, or very little time here. Then you get immersed right into the campus. What was your impression of Minnesota then?
On my official visit, we got off of the plane. It was actually on my birthday. And we walked outside, and I breathed in and immediately started coughing. My birthday's in January. So I breathe in, and I'm just barking, I'm coughing. My mom's like, "Are you okay? You need your inhaler." That's always her keyword.
But it got you to be quiet.
It did. I did shut up at that point too. But when I got up here, it was oh my gosh, I did not even know that Minnesota had this or Minneapolis had this. And I always go back to this story. I had this young lady in my class when I was in 3rd grade, and we were pointing on the map on where we were from. And she pointed, "I'm from right here. I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota."
Wow.
And on that day, I had never forgotten that moment. So you're talking about just divine intervention from that point. I was like, that's really interesting. But then, before you know it, I'm up here and I'm playing ball. So
and you've left. You played here. You played for the Gophers, and then you had opportunities to be inside of football programs elsewhere. Tell people a little bit about your career path from playing as a Gopher to ending up back here as a coach for the Gophers.
Yeah, so I left here. It was COVID year. The BC Lions actually had my rights, so I was ready to go and play Canadian football a little bit.
All right.
I go down to Charlotte. Marcus West, who's now the defensive line coach at the Buffalo Bills, was like, "Hey, I think you need a GA. You're going to be an awesome coach." Coming back later, I was talking to Coach Fleck when we were on the road not too long ago, and he was like, "Yeah, I always knew you were going to be a coach." I'm like, "Well, dude, I wish somebody would have told me."
Yeah,
no question. So he said he always knew.
PJ's like, "I would have told you, but you wouldn't stop talking."
There you go. I wouldn't shut up. I'm the motor mouth. So go down to Charlotte. I'm down there for a season. It's COVID year. It's dreary. It's tough. Then I go out to Oregon that next year, man, and it blew my mind away. Being able to coach Kayvon Thibodeau and a couple of those other guys. Oh, my goodness. It was awesome, but we had lost in the Pac-12 championship to Utah. So you're talking about another team with a very strong culture. Then you go to Akron with Joe Moorhead, who's an offensive guru, and he's teaching me a lot. And before you know it, I blink my eyes and Coach Fleck FaceTimes me, and he's like, "Hey, would you mind coming back?" I'm like, "What do you mean? Would I mind coming back?"
That's great.
Heck yeah, I want to come back.
That's fantastic. Kayvon, I'm glad you brought him up. Certainly, I think every team in the NFL would take Kayvon Thibodeau. But correct me if I'm wrong here, because the Vikings played the Giants twice last year, so I'm certainly not going to claim I'm deep diving him like a defensive line coach, but, either talking to Andre Patterson, the defensive line coach for the Giants, who I've known for a long time, or just watching the way he plays. Do you think it was an eye-opener for him last year, his rookie year, that I'm fast, I'm strong, I can jump? It ain't as easy to run around these guys as it was in the Pac-12, and I got to work on some moves.
No question. Yeah, I think it was an eye-opener for him. But the thing about Kayvon is he's always going to be overconfident, so it doesn't matter. Kayvon's like, "Well, I'm still Kayvon, so you still got to line up against me."
Right.
And I love that about his mindset and mentality. I know one day we were scrimmaging, and he came over, and Coach Cristobal was like, "Hey, next person to get a stop or next person to go ahead and get this first down, it's over." He comes over to me. He's like, "Hey, coach, you want to go inside? You want to be done with practice?" What are you talking about? He lines up, he loads his front foot, gets off the ball, and he takes the ball away from Anthony Brown.
No way.
Runs and takes the ball away from him.
Jeez.
I'm like, okay, this guy's a little special. So he does that, practice is over, and I'm like, holy crap, what is going on right now? So he's a special guy, but overconfident for sure, in the best ways.
Now, you must have saw Bo Nix at Oregon.
Missed him by a year.
You're past
missed him, but I played him though.
Right,
you did.
I played him when he was a young buck and I was an old man.
Oh, your final year for the Gophers, that Outback Bowl year.
Yep, Outback Bowl year. So that was really cool. It's we almost crossed paths being out there, but he came as soon as I left.
Okay.
Yep, and went to Akron.
Well,
was his arrival when they brought him to Oregon was like, I'm only willing to come if Winston goes.
I think that was in the contract.
Probably
it had to be in the NIL deal or something like that.
Right.
Winston's got to get the heck up out of here.
Now, I definitely want to get into the clinic and some drills and high school football and stuff like that momentarily. But just off that, since a rookie quarterback's name came up, Bo Nix, and the NFL draft's 20 days away, the Minnesota Vikings could be in the market to trade up to get a quarterback. And you being defensive line coach for the Gophers, you were breaking down the all-22 on J.J. McCarthy. So just what do you think of J.J. Quick Twitch?
That guy right there, he's an X factor, right? So being able to watch him film-wise, being able to watch what he can do to coverages, you got to be able to take all that into account, and then you got to be able to rush aggressively, okay, to be able to go ahead and make him second think his reads, but you can't rush too aggressive because at that point he's going to step up and he's going to go for 40 yards.
Really?
So
is he fast?
He can go now.
Yeah,
he can go. So that guy's special. I wish him all the best. But when we played against him this year, we knew he was going to be a problem.
Well, and tell me if you think I'm overinflating this or maybe over talking it a little bit, because like in looking for nuggets on whether it's let's put Caleb Williams on the Bears, whether it's Jaden Daniels or it's Drake May or JJ McCarthy or Bo Nix or Michael Penix, I'm looking at their ages. All right, now Michael Penix will head into his second deal at like 28 years of age. So that's one thing. On the other side of it, McCarthy turned 21 the same month you became assistant head coach. That's only 2 months ago.
Right.
Which means at ages 19 and 20, my man was making some big time plays for a power offense with power running and vertical passing, not predicated on a lot of zone stuff. So therefore, if you believe when you shake the reins with this young man and he ages and matures, I mean, there may be gold in them Thar Hills. Do you see it that way?
I see it that way. I think he'll be able to play up. But even if you look all the way back to when he was playing in high school, I mean, that guy could really just go. So you kind of look at that. You look at the maturity of the quarterbacks and you watch these guys kind of just grow up. I mean, Coach Fleck even talked about it with us, even from 17 all the way up until 19. I look back at it and I'm like, holy crap, we just kept growing and growing and growing. And being a young team, or alluding to a young quarterback, it only gets better as they get older.
How are you learning how to coach? I mean, this is all still pretty new to you. What's the training to be a good, effective coach?
Well, I'm going to say this, and I'm very biased, of course. I think being at the University of Minnesota, you are being coached by the head coach. Mm-hmm. So every day, every staff meeting, everything's being evaluated, and not in a negative way or portion, but it's just, hey, you could use this term to be able to make your speaking more effective. You could reach these guys this way rather than what you did this way. And it's little things like hurry up versus urgency. So if you tell somebody, hurry up, that's sloppy. Right? That's slop. Or you say urgency. Okay, that means let's go. It could be on point. It's tight. And it's little things like that. And if you come to practice, you'll see Coach Fleck kind of like walk up behind guys' ears. And he doesn't put them on, he doesn't put them on blast, but he'll walk up behind me and say, hey, hurry up versus urgency. Yep. Remember, difference between those two things, that'll make you a better coach. And he'll slap me on the back and he'll just sprint off.
I love it. That's right.
This is Gophers defensive line coach and assistant head coach Winston DeLattiboudere. I put the Scott in because you did in your name pronunciation at Gophers.com, and it's just a cool name, Winston Scott DeLattiboudere, and he's with the Golden Gophers on Twitter at Coach_Debo numbers 46, Coach_Debo 46. Do you find being on social media, Coach, helps you either recruit or better relate to players?
100%. You got to stay in the know. I feel like if you're out of the know, then these kids will kind of push you to the back a little bit. Mm-hmm. So you got to know what's going on social media. And then, every once in a while, you send them a little something funny that'll be in their wheelhouse. Right? So they're like, oh, coach is thinking about me. You got to be able to recruit on Instagram, on Twitter, and on the regular phone. Yeah. So and the TikTok. Days of just calling, and on TikTok.
Yeah, you got to start dancing on TikTok.
Oh, no, I can't do the dancing on TikTok.
And don't do the TikTok stuff where people are like licking food in the grocery store. Let's not do that. Putting their feet on the food in restaurants, stuff like that. That's not TikTok.
My wife wants to go ahead and take over my TikTok, but at that point, I feel like it's unauthorized.
Yeah, but you know what? If there's a game-changing senior in high school 3 technique on TikTok, licking something at a grocery store, you can coach that out of him.
I'll coach that out of him, but I might leave a couple flame emojis under the comments just until he gets up on campus.
Now, I've been wondering for quite some time, Winston, what's the difference between break foot and drive foot? And the assumption is neither can be executed with drop foot.
Oh, my goodness.
Is that accurate?
You guys are on it. Yeah, that's
what's the difference? Accurate. Well, I saw your Twitter, and I saw PJ Fleck talking about it. And I mean, he was breaking it down. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to ask Winston.
There you go. So this is programmatic. So your break foot is actually the foot that's going to stop your forward movement. Okay? So your break foot's going to stop it, and your drive foot's going to be the opposite foot that's going to take you on the line to where you want to go. Mm-hmm. And both can't be executed at the same time. So it's 2 separate motions. That break foot's going to, boom, stop you, and then that drive foot's going to take you either on an angle break or a flat break to get you where you need to go.
Is that clinic worthy when you chat today?
That's 100% clinic worthy. But I'm not going to be talking about break foot drive.
Yeah.
It's going to be more flipping the hips and getting to the quarterback a little bit.
And I started bringing this up at the combine the last couple of years, the NFL scouting combine. It's not like it's new, but I mean, the desire for game-changing three techniques. All right, the defensive tackles who rush the quarterback. We can go Aaron Donald. Best in the history of the game's John Randall. You get players like Fletcher Cox who can play three-technique nose tackle. And the position flexibility is so important in the NFL now, but it's like the game-changing three technique has become the new is like almost as important as the quarterback with the way people are looking for them. Are they easy to recruit and or find?
Dear God, no. It's hard. They kind of have to be created. It's like going into a lab.
Yeah.
You take some bigger defensive ends, right? You bump them in, but then if the kid doesn't want to play D-tackle, then all of a sudden you don't have a guy that's ready to play D-tackle or three-tech.
Well, that's cool because then you have to deal with recruiting him while he's on the team to make sure he doesn't enter the portal.
Correct. I'll give you this example. Somebody who's done an excellent job transitioning is Jalen Logan Redding. Yeah. And you watch him playing defensive end his first 2 years, and then last year going to three-tech. Now you've got a 6'4", 280-pound three-tech, and that's exactly what you want.
Wow.
Versus a 6'4", 280-pound defensive end. And I tell him all the time, I'm like, man, put those fat boys on skates. I'm like make them fat dudes dance because they don't want to in there. And you could see the Iowa game and Nebraska. That's exactly what he did.
That's beautiful.
I love it. We're short on time, so I got to get this in. What do I got to do to improve my beard game?
Oh my goodness! It's the washing, it's the conditioning.
Do you put conditioner in?
Well, your beard's 3 inches long.
There you go.
I mean, ours are short.
Yeah, I'm 6 millimeters. That's me. I know this from my trimmer. All right, so if I want to get to your level of beard greatness, what do I need to do next?
Oils,
yes,
shampoo, conditioner, repeat.
Oils, shampoo, conditioner, repeat. 100%. Except the oils have to go on at the end.
Well, they have to go in at the end when you're out of the shower.
I'm using beard butter right now, and it smells great. It's settled. My beard right now, it smells fantastic. Just trust me on that.
I will.
What do you think of beard butter?
Beard butter is cool. I think it depends on where you get it from because I've had some beard butters that have made my beard flaky.
Yeah.
Other beard butters that have made my beard luscious. So you got to make sure you know where it's coming from.
All right. I've never done conditioner. I'm going to start adding the conditioner in.
You have to.
Okay.
It's a co-wash.
All right.
Got to get it done.
How did you qualify for, I think it's NBC's Password?
Yes.
How did
the
this
show
come to-
Password. I mean, it's Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, so we're not talking some SCTV, some side dish here.
Hey.
I mean, this how'd you do it?
So my wife sends me a DM and she's like, this lady asked if I wanted to be on Password. And then she asked her, do you know any football coaches? And she was like, oh, well, my husband's a football coach.
I happen to be married to one.
I happen to be married to one.
Wow.
So I thought it was a scam for at least 6 to 7 weeks.
So you thought your wife was scamming you?
Well, I thought the lady was scamming my wife and I had been dragged into it.
Yeah.
So I played a couple of rounds against some people on Zoom and I was like, this is a scam until I got the NDA that was basically like, okay, you can't tell anybody that you're going on the show Password. So when that happened, I said, okay, this is legit.
Jeez.
I said, let me go ahead and I broke the rule and I told Coach Fleck, but that was the only person I could tell because I'm like, hey, the day after the Wisconsin game, I might have to go to LA.
Yeah.
So he was just like, let me know if you make it. And I ended up beating everybody in the kind of pre-rounds and then
Then you made it to the show.
I made it on the show.
Wow. And how'd you do on the show?
I lost.
Oh.
I lost.
It was your partner's fault.
It wasn't Jimmy Kimmel's fault, and I hope he listens to this.
Yeah.
Right? It was his fault. He wasn't picking up on my keys and my code words. But when we got to the sudden death round, so the lady had been beating the crap out of me in kind of the rehearsal sudden death round. So I said, if I'm going to go ahead and be out, I'm going to take myself out. I'm not going to let her take me out.
Right. In closing, just I don't want to leave this. I don't want to forget this because Ja Joyner is somebody that you coach and really jumped up last year. And what do you think about him into this season and just the totality of your defensive line?
Yeah, so Ja has a lot of growing to do. And I always tell my guys, I love you, so I'm going to be highly critical of you. I think that 7.5 sacks.
My wife can understand that kind of love.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So I told him I'm like 7.5 sacks ain't even touching the tipping point of what you can do if you're consistent in your technique.
Yeah.
Same thing with Danny Strigow, who was actually only a sack and a half behind Ja.
Wow.
And both of them doubled their production coming in from the year before. We have a lot of guys on that defensive line who, if they can be consistent, and we talk about consistency is the evidence of maturity and the pathway to mastery. mastery. If they can go ahead and get those things done, I feel very confident about where we'll be. But we have a lot of work to do up until that point.
You know, I know you didn't have Tyler Nubin in your room, but I mean, he was on that defense, and the more I learn about him coming up to the draft, you know, like from a Viking standpoint, they just went through a season with a player named Josh Metellus, who kind of jumped up out of nowhere, played some safety, inside, outside linebacker, played a little nickel. I'm not saying Tyler can be all that, but it seems like Tyler is a wonderful defensive back for the new age NFL of position flexibility. Is that true?
Correct. Yes, he has a lot of position versatility, and I'll tell you something about Tyler. We bumped heads a lot because we played on the same team.
Yeah.
So I'd get on him a little bit, and he'd go back at me, and I'm like, okay, dude. Like, I give him that look, and then he kind of back off a little bit. But I think position versatility, intelligence, understanding of situational football, he's going to be somebody's gem coming up here in a couple of days.
Yeah, and he's going to get drafted no later than the second round.
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
God bless you, man.
Man, I appreciate you, man. God bless you as well. And I just want to say thank you guys so much for having me on. This was an amazing experience.
You're fantastic, and best of luck to your family and with your career, and thanks for stopping by. That is Winston, say your last name.
DeLattiboudere III.
Je m'appelle Paul. With Paul, and we are at the DoubleTree adjacent to Minneapolis for the Minnesota High School Football Coaches Association clinics. Chad Greenway joins 9 to noon next.